Hi, everyone. Welcome, all of you, dear friends. Welcome, Anahy, Dr. Anahy Fonseca, to this new episode of Psychology and Spirituality. So, Dr. Anahy Fonseca, I consider you my dear friend, joins me
Yes.
today. So, we can together discuss a topic that Joanna de Ângelis explore in her work, right, Anahy? Education. And specifically today, we're going to discuss education, but also as it is attached to courage and the power to change. I believe, Anaí, that Joanna provides this beautiful invitation for all of us to really understand courage. And I see courage not as impulsiveness or even courage as this absence of fear, but as a moral force born of love, faith, and inner balance. It's an attribute that I would say dignifies us, but also propels us into our spiritual growth or moral growth. But if I also start thinking about, and I am thinking that we could illustrate her teachings on this topic and somehow connect with the concept brought forth by Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey with a very, very interesting movie, The Freedom Riders, which is a powerful, powerful story of a teacher's courage, right? And the courage not just to educate, but to transform the lives of those students in her classroom through compassion, perseverance, and her indelible faith in the human potential. So, if we quote Joanna, we can say that courage is not about fighting dragons outside, it is about conquering the fears within. So, Anaí, how you doing? And before we begin, can I start with maybe giving a little bit to the audience who may not know the movie or have not seen it or forgot about it, and we can talk about it. But how are you doing?
Yes, go ahead. I'm feeling great
Uh-huh.
and very excited to be here with you and talking about courage and education and the power to change. So let's
Awesome.
go ahead and please tell us about the movie.
Okay, okay. So the 2007, so almost 2 decades ago, right? The movie Freedom Riders was inspired by this true story about this quite young, it was her first job, right? A very young and idealistic English teacher. Her name is Erin Grunwell. She was called by her students by Mrs. G for Gruel, and she begins teaching at Woodrow Wilson High School in Long Beach, California. The interesting thing is that the book, oh my goodness, I spoiled the spoiled alert, right? This is terrible. But they did publish a book, and the book was published in 1999. Okay, so if we trace the storyline, this movie is about her coming to the classroom for the first time in 1994, but 2 years prior, 1992, it was there was this Los Angeles riots, and I don't know if you remember. I remember I was living in Atlanta at the time, Anaí, and the day of those riots, it exploded a similar in downtown Atlanta where I worked. And so it was quite scary because the whole country was just, there's so much hatred and violence, and all expressing a school, but really the whole country, right? Deeply divided by racial tension, gang violence, poverty, etc., etc. So Anyways, what is the plot? This young, idealistic teacher comes to a classroom to teach at risk. They were called at risk freshmen. And those students included many different racial groups and ethnic backgrounds, such as African American, Latino, Cambodian, and others. And many of those students have already experienced, and this is important for us to have in our minds here, Anahy, trauma, PTSD, right? Discrimination, incredible loss. So, as we would expect, Erin comes to her classroom all just fresh. She's quite cute with her pearls, and everybody says, "Don't wear your pearls; it's gonna be gone." And she goes day after day with her pearls, right? Just exemplifying her courage, her quiet courage. But she comes in and she faces hostility in and outside of the classroom. But in the classroom, the hostility also was expressed by apathy, right? Those students could care less about this young woman. They could care less about her lack of an awareness and understanding. They viewed her as an outsider, but also in their young lives, they all had one common thread, which was little hope for their future, right? But Erin goes through and I don't know what's the best way to say this, quite frankly, but she goes through that shield of apathy and she just burrows through and she starts to connect them. And the three main areas of connecting to those students is number one, she encouraged them to write their stories in a journal, right? The number two is to introduce them to books and historical figures that are closely matching or connecting or even mirroring their own struggles. So I remember the diary of Anne Franco's Lotus diary, right? So it's all connecting for them. And finally, she created in that classroom a safe space, whereas whenever they left the threshold of that classroom, they're no longer safe. They had right, and they had to put their guards up. But there's just really there's this sense of my life is in danger every minute of the day. But anyways, she created that safe space, and that the space was really woven with empathy, storytelling, and understanding across those racial lines. So through that process, her students start seeing themselves, and this is pure Joanna de Ângelis, right? They start to see themselves no longer as victims of circumstances. And I love that because that journey through self-awareness, they were able to open their minds and their hearts to tell their unique stories, and in doing that, they start to see who they were, right? So, just to wrap up, Anahy, they form the so-called freedom writers, as in writer, right? An author. And the title is inspired by the freedom writers of the civil rights movement. Of a couple of decades earlier, and eventually they published their own collection of journal entries. I have to confess, I did not read the book, but this conversation today is making me want to immediately after we talk to go get me the book and read it because it's quite touching, the movie. So I told you the plot. What are your thoughts? I think you've seen the movie. Can you tell us a little about, from your perspective, how does the movie really bring us some really interesting concepts that we can find in within Joanna de Ângelis' work?
Yes, so we have a lot to talk about today.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
see if we have time. But it's Marcia is so up to date, unfortunately, right? In terms of what's going on with young people, right? And I think you talked about the myth of the hero.
yeah,
That it's of course the it's development of consciousness, ego consciousness, and what happens is that when you are a teenager, you are in this in between the child that you were yesterday
yeah,
and the adult that you are not yet, right?
yeah, yeah.
So it's a very tough and a moment of life. And what we have to understand is that a lot of people ask me, oh, but what's going on with youth, because they are so sometimes so aggressive and always this kind of riots, and they are still going on nowadays. And we have, of course, noble um, issues to go and fight for.
Mm-hmm.
But what really is courage, and which kind of values are we, the reflection of what is important to fight for? You said, so I wanted to go back
Okay.
to the movie and to see it as an example, right, of
Mm-hmm.
youngsters and people that, as you said, they of course had a lot of traumas,
Yeah,
because when you grow up in poverty and you grow up with parents maybe alcoholics or drug addicts, and a lot of stuff that goes on, and it's not only poor people, because you can have of course different mental diseases and drug addictions and things like that in all classes and
mm-hmm.
all social classes, social strata. But I think something it's very important, Marcia, that Joanna calls us to, and you said also that in the movie they didn't have any hope of the
Yeah,
future, right? They were like stuck. And a lot of people feel nowadays without hope
yeah,
and without, possibility
mm-hmm.
to, what is going to be. A lot of fear is going on these days. We have lots of, threats,
Yeah,
like the adolescents in the movie, right? The
yeah,
teenagers, that is said she made a safe space for them. What is our safe space,
yeah,
right? Because we are many times like they in the movie, and they were teenagers that, of course, everything is very increased because of the not being actually an adult and
yeah,
yet, and
yeah,
all the traumas of childhood are so near consciousness, right?
yeah, yeah.
So it's a very, psychologically speaking, it's a very tough period of time. But I think you said something that it's pretty much from our days, our, as we have been talking
Uh,
in previous episodes. Please, people, go there and check.
yeah.
But we have talked about apocalyptic times that we are in, times of revelation, things like that. So, what I think Joanna is asking us to pay attention is that if we don't know who we are, right?
Yeah,
If we don't know what we are doing in this world, in this life, if we are, stuck in the material world, thinking that well, if I don't have the money that I need for, or maybe I will lose everything, what's going to be? Maybe it's going to be a conflict in my neighborhood, in my country. So, what's going to be my future? So, all of this
mhm.
is the ego. Fear, of course, is from the ego, or Joanna says that many times we have from past lives some patterns and some very strong emotion that we bring to this life, and then we make again, we are in situations that bring these feelings and these emotions and this
So it's
and
almost like
situations.
if I
Yeah.
may, just to clarify to myself, Anahy. So, point one that you bring is that we are all sharing the same in today's age, right? We share the same sense of hopelessness as those youngsters. But the number two is that with the beautiful teachings of Joanna and many other in the field of psychology, of course, we understand that those fears are mostly based on our ego, right? Our ego that is afraid. But we also, a third layer into what you're saying is the fact that just a reminder, we are immortal souls, right? And as immortal spirits, we don't die. We reincarnate. We have this the big arc of our lives, various existence, corporeal existence, but we may bring from previous ones those patterns. And I brought those 3 points that you brought it up, Anahy, is the question that what I think you're trying to say. Now, just wanted to clarify, there is that there may be some pain points already there that may not have to do anything with the current structure or current conflict, but because that wound is already there, the new the today the current conflict is just touching upon it, and the pain comes through. Is this what you're trying to say, or how can we maybe correct
No,
my own
I think
understanding?
yeah, because we have sufferings from this life
Yeah,
as the teenagers in that
yeah,
neighborhood, in that situation, but we also bring sufferings,
yeah,
misunderstandings, difficult patterns, feelings and emotions connected to some of our complexes, right? Things that we
yeah.
lived and got a
Hmm.
lot stuck, like guilty feelings of being guilt from about something that can even be like potentialized, like increased in this life. So we have to understand, and I think this is so important, and it's all about education, as you were saying, education for courage, for being brave in this life, facing the challenges. So when we change the paradigm of the way that we are facing life, understanding ourselves and our place in this world, what are we
Hmm.
doing here, individually and collectively? So it changes everything. The way that the teacher did, because
Yeah,
she asked them to write diaries about themselves, right? And she
yeah,
made them read Anne Frank and all, but it was a very tough time for a teenager
yeah.
in the middle of the Second World War and all that
Hmm.
aggressiveness, war, and everything else. But she was talking about her life, and she was making observations. She was like any other teenagers. She left a legacy of courage,
Yeah,
of and giving the example that life has always something to teach us, that we
yeah,
are here in this precious life, even if it's we suffer, of course, and all of us go through different types of suffering. All of us, doesn't
yeah,
matter the amount of money, the condition, the race, the gender, whatever. It's human condition to this day in this world that is transitioning for higher vibrations. We know that through spiritism knowledge, right? But these vibrations increased love, increased spiritual awakening. So it has everything to do, and it's the main purpose of Joanna de Ângelis to help us awaken to this reality and that is within us in our higher selves. So, of course, teenagers would, of course, be more difficult for to teach that, because they are questioning adults
Yes.
all the time,
Which is their
right?
role, right? It's their role to question. Anyways, yeah.
It is, it is. Because you cannot teach something that you haven't learned yet. So I
Yeah.
think it's a beautiful example that that teacher, she taught them through love, through connecting to their experience, to recognizing them as not all teenagers that have undergone this and this that difficulty, but brothers and sisters living the same kind of experience
Yeah.
that of course can be harder, tougher for to some than more than others, but in the end we all learn through suffering. We hope in the future, Marcia and everybody else, that we are not going to have to go through so
Yeah.
much suffering to learn,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we know that even courage, suffering teaches us to be brave, to have courage. And I just wanted to remind everyone, I think in some other episode we have already at least said something about that, but courage comes from the Latin word cor, that it's heart in Latin, and age, courage, that it's agire, that it's to act, right? So it's to act, to have courage, as Joanna says, is to act with the wisdom of the heart. But where is the wisdom of the heart? It's not in our mind saying this and that. If I don't do this, of course, we need our minds. Of course, we have to discern learn to discern, learn to rationalize. Well, this means that, and all the stuff. But and that's intelligence, of
Hmm.
course. But when we are talking about the wisdom, it's not intelligence. So,
Yeah.
wisdom of the heart is something that I bring with me from all my past experiences.
Yeah.
Because, of course, I have suffered in other lives. We are still learning through this process of suffering. But I have also, Marcia, I have also learned something, and what I have learned taught me not to suffer anymore from that.
Yeah.
So it's so great. It's what happens in the movie, right? They
Yes.
changed in the end all the paradigm. They understand that they are not the only ones to suffer, and that the legacy, as you said, we make our own legacy, but it's more important to help us, each one of us, to understand that, as Joanna says, I inherit everything that my spirit learns,
I love it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and even what it has not learned yet, but will, because we are having this great opportunity. So, if I don't want to suffer anymore, of
Hmm.
course I can. I'm able to, because
Yeah.
I'm here to learn. So it's the suffering that helps me to understand that I don't need to suffer anymore. And I
Yeah.
think you are helping all of us that have seen the movie, but it was many many years ago, to connect again with this beautiful story, that it's a true story, right? As you
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
telling us,
Yeah. Yeah.
of this teacher that taught. I think she taught them mostly that it's a very high spiritual value, that we are all brothers and sisters, that we
Yes.
all go through sufferings, that we can help each other, but especially that we have um, to help ourselves first. And we help ourselves, as Joanna said, developing, self consciousness,
Yeah.
understanding that who we are, what
Yeah.
is my value. I cannot expect others to show myself, right? To show me actually, which is my value,
Yeah.
which are my values, and
Hmm.
who I am. I have to find that. But when you are a teenager, of course, and even if we say spiritually speaking, right?
Mhm.
because we are like spiritual children
Yeah, yeah,
coming
yeah,
through the teenage years. So we are going to have mentors such as Joanna de Ângelis, the beautiful light teacher, others that come. We have examples of heroes that have been here before us, have led the way, right? We
yeah,
have so many beautiful
yeah.
examples. Martin Luther King,
Yes,
Gandhi,
yes,
Mother Teresa of Calcutta, and so many others, so that have shown us the way. But we don't, of course, we can be inspired by them, but
yeah,
we have to find our own challenges. Which
yeah,
are our challenges? What am I supposed to do here? What I have come to learn? Which sufferings I, of course, I'm going to go through until I learn. But if I know that, then hope, as returning to what you said, hope comes back to me. And
yeah.
this trust, as you were citing Joanna de Angelis, this trust, this faith in not in other people, because people, teenagers, they are always trying to, to see your, when you are going to say something that you really don't believe but you want to teach me, right?
Hmm.
They're challenging us all the time. So
Yeah,
if we find our the connection to our own, the wisdom of our hearts, our the truth within ourselves, not others, ourselves, and then we I connect to the
hmm,
transcendent, to God, to the mentors, to the
yeah,
spiritual realms, and not because I'm a medium. Many people are, but some people don't have this capability, this ability to see and this and that. But the heart knows, as Jung says, what is good
hmm,
for the soul.
yeah.
So then I
I,
can
yeah,
feel
go
that
ahead.
I have these
Yeah.
mentors and these spiritual guides with me, and then I can connect to someone that really wants to help me, that has this connection, spiritual connection with me. And then I can see that I'm not alone. We are never alone, we know that. But sometimes we feel alone because we feel disconnected.
Yeah.
But I want to listen to you. What do you think about
No,
all of this?
I just love it. And as you're speaking, the images from the movie comes to my mind is difficult. One of the just there's many difficult scenes, but one of the scenes that was the most difficult was a one of the school administrator in their library has many copies, say, of Anne Frank, and the young Erin goes there to take it for her students, and she says, "No, no, they cannot have these books because they destroy them, right?" And she goes into almost like children's stories. It says this is where they have the capacity to read, and as she pointed to those little books, they're all pretty much destroyed already. And that scene, and I just struck a chord because the hypothesis here is just like and we can even say multi-generational for those kids at risk, is that they will never amount to anything, right? This is a terrible phrasing, but they will never graduate, they will never be professional, they will never be able to be contributing citizens to society. They are already somehow classified as in their disenfranchised state as marginalized, and leading to a life of violence and crime. So the result of that is she doesn't accept it. So she takes another job just so she can buy not the same book, but brand new book to those children. And that's one way to change the paradigm, which is I'm going to treat you as the most important person in my life. And she did that with the entire class of young students. And she did that, and she kept uh, stretching, right? And she just kept creating, expanding the boundaries of her role with the one objective: you will learn to trust yourself, as you mentioned. You will learn to have faith. You will learn to tap into hope. And you're going to do all of this through educational tools and methodologies, but you're going to capture your courage not to be part of a gang through violence, but with the biggest, most difficult one of all, which is to trust yourself. So one of the things that I wanted to say, I think we have a little bit of time before we wrap up today, but Joanna says the following: human existence can be seen as this, as an evolutionary adventure, right? Human existence can be seen as an evolutionary adventure. You and I'm sure we agree with Joanna de Angelis when she says that we're always evolving, right? But the fact that she uses this sense of growth and progressive evolution in our maturity, as I think you call it, as uh, very young, immature spirits that we are, right? But if we hear the word that she uses, this evolutionary adventure, somehow it connected with Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, and in that, and I love Joseph Campbell, by the way, but there Joseph Campbell brings the image of the hero, and he hears, he, anyone, right, as the hero, he hears the call to adventure, right? Okay, Joanna, we're touching here, but through that call and embarking in this new adventure, the hero will have to face trials, right? There will be a lot of things going on, some Herculean, some not. And then the hero returns to the place that it began, transformed. So if we go back to what you brought here from a definition of courage, right? The heart and the action together, courage. In this sense, courage would be defined perhaps as what moves the spirit, the hero, to leave the comfort zone. What do you think?
Yes, I think because you see, we say that the hero's journey is the development of consciousness here in this. So it's an adventure, but the ego is serving, the ego must serve, as Joseph Campbell says, um, the self, young self, capital S, the higher
Yeah,
self,
yeah,
right? That it's the spirit, as Jonas says. So the ego is here to serve, to live this life, this adventure, to
yeah.
learn, and it's serving the evolution of the spirit. It's not
Hmm.
here, just to have fun, to play. Well, this can be, it's part of this education.
Yeah.
But especially, and I think it's very important because the mentors they are always warning us
Hmm.
that this life, okay, we are immortal beings. We are going to live, so forever, and but of course we are going to evolve, as Joanna says, and it's an adventure, this evolution. we
Yeah.
we cannot even imagine what's ahead of us,
That's
spiritually
beautiful.
speaking,
Yeah.
the words,
Yeah.
the cosmos. Joanna is calling us to cosmic consciousness, people. I'm
Yeah.
not going to talk even about some comets that are bombing in the internet and all this stuff people are talking a lot about. what is that or that, what is going on, and all this. But we know
Mm-hmm.
through Allan Kardec's teachings, right?
Yeah.
And we have here in Brazil, and of course, you guys have in the United States Edgar Casey, and we have
Mm.
mediums all around the globe. Here in Brazil, Divaldo and Chico Xavier. That, of course, we are understanding through spiritist knowledge and through all these mediums that
Mm-hmm.
we are here to evolve. We are in a very specific time of our evolution here in this planet, that it's having a shift of consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
the whole of humanity and the sentient beings also, because we are not alone, right? We are
Yeah.
here with a lot of beings, and we are of plants, animals, and all
Yeah.
minerals, and all this life in the planet.
Yeah.
So of course we are going through this adventure,
Yeah.
but we cannot forget that the let's say the consciousness inside of our psyche that
Yeah.
has the knowledge where we came from and towards where we are going is the self, is not the ego,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's what Joanna is calling us to understand, that the ego must serve this higher self,
Yeah.
must pay attention to this knowledge that it's within us.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important, Marcia, that, and when you said about, of course, the courage of the hero,
Yeah.
so we can think of that the hero myth has everything to do with the development of consciousness
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's also the development of the higher self, because everything that we are learning here, we are going to take with us.
Yeah.
The moral values, the beauty that we are able to create and recognize, the truth that we live, all the high spiritual values that we can achieve.
Yeah.
Of course, our intelligence, but the intelligence that it's greater, the only cognitive intelligence. I still hope that when I get to spiritual realms, I will know much more math than I do. I keep telling that I do here, because I'm awful in math.
I
But
love it.
they say, well, you are going to remember that what you have already learned. So I
Yeah.
hope, guys, that I'll
Yeah.
be able to learn. But what I wanted, you cited Joanna, and Joanna also says, Marcia, courage is a byproduct of a
Uh-huh.
specific feeling of love
Yeah.
towards that in which we believe, we wish for, and we fight for. We wish and we fight. And she
Yeah.
says that education for courage means
Yeah.
to develop aspirations of beauty. We are talking about
Yeah.
truth and moral values, to
Yeah.
face the challenge of life. So you understand, I understand that. Let's see what you think about that. Because love is creation.
Yes.
Love is the energy of creation, the energy of the source that we call God, right? So, whatever we learn, the level we learn of love, as the teacher in Freedom
Yeah.
Riders,
Yeah.
that she was basically teaching all the teenagers to love themselves and to love each others, and of course to love humanity,
Yeah.
like like all the examples that we have been talking here. So this, and she, as I remember the movie, she
Mm.
never talks about religion in the movie.
No. No. Not at
So
all.
she was teaching spirituality, very high level spirituality, without even talking about religion, because of course the teenagers, maybe many of them didn't have any religion. They were
Yeah.
rebellious against the adults. They had suffered a lot already, but she was teaching all of that. So I think what we learn here, this courage that we
Hmm.
learn, this wisdom of our hearts that we connect through all the suffering that
Yeah.
our egos go through in this life,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
kind of remembering and finding and even growing in wisdom, right?
Yeah.
So I think the hero myth, of course, I think Campbell was talking about development of conscience here in this, and the
Yeah.
ego, and of course here in this dimension,
Yeah.
but we could extrapolate, let's say, to the wisdom and to the courage of our higher self,
I
because
love it.
challenges are
Yeah.
going, evolution is this adventure.
Yes.
I still
And
want to meet you in the spaceship in the spiritual dimension.
we will. But one of the things that I was thinking, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, is in the movie, of course, the teacher Erin embodies this archetypal journey of the hero's journey, right? If you think about it, because she is faced with, right, just in her face, right, the same level of violence and races and apathy, indifference that the students were suffering, right? So that's all their language. So she encounters the expression of the experience of the students, and um, her choice as a hero is not to surrender. Her choice is to exemplify courage, in a beautiful type of courage in this case, which is the courage to believe in her students, their worth, their ability, their potentiality to transform their lives, right? But also in doing that, they transform her. So it's a beautiful narrative here. But I would say this is my interpretation here, Anahy. Just like Campbell's hero, Erin crosses thresholds, right? She keeps crossing, and she goes from fear and very timid, very, very young and inexperienced with no voice, but she goes from that space of fear to a space of faith, right? I would even say she had to face so much frustration with the school system and how they perpetuated the that earlier assumption or hypothesis, as I put it, that those kids who are or were at risk would never amount to anything. But she will, frustrated as she moved from that space to a space of hope. And like you said, she did discover and expressed and enacted or executed on the idea that love is indeed the ultimate source for courage. And I just love it. And I would love to hear from you before we close our episode today.
Yes, I was listening to you, Martin, and thinking about the shadow and light duality,
Yeah,
because I was coming to my mind some scenes of the movie.
yeah,
She was seeing, of course, she was afraid in the beginning of the shadow that she saw. She
yeah,
was surrounded by shadows,
yeah,
right? And they were acting, let's say, in the shadows, like if I'm equal to anyone, if I'm afraid of being hurt, then I
yeah,
will hurt. That is very
yeah,
basic, to
yeah,
protect myself. So if the people are mean to me, I will be mean also. And so it's kind of a vicious circle,
yeah,
let's say.
yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah,
and I'm always so sorry for leaders of any kind, and people that are have the responsibility to help others, when they cannot recognize that they all of us have imperfections.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, our position in life or anything on that. We are all brothers and sisters, as Joanna said, developing, evolving here in this adventure, in this big school, our beautiful planet, and learning to be better, to evolve, to to evolve in consciousness, spiritually speaking. So if we have imperfections, all of us, if
Yeah.
we have our shadows, we can say, right? We also have our light.
Ah,
None of
beautiful.
us are pure light. We are not,
Yeah.
because otherwise we would be very high in the spiritual dimension. It's not the case. We know that, because we still have wars, we still have violence and things like that. Um, so that's the scale of moral values, and that it doesn't matter. It's nothing is justified. We know, that we should love each other, we should love ourselves, and we should love. And this love is like, know thyself,
Yeah.
know God, know the transcendent, know the other. Know is to love, to respect, to be intimate in spiritually speaking, to
I love it.
feel that
Yes.
you are fish. We are all fishes in this beautiful ocean of love. So we are kind of still having a lot of difficulties, but we are in a spiritual awakening. So in this light and shadow aspects of all of us, how can you teach light? You can only teach light when you face the shadow, right? It's like Luke Skywalker fighting Darth Vader. To
Yeah.
remember another movie that we have already talked about, right? So, how could he bring his father back to the light? Because he embraced his father with love, saying that he would not fight him,
Yeah.
not in that way that even the father wanted, because he wanted to bring Luke to the
Yeah.
dark
Yeah.
side of the
Yeah.
force. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing with the teacher. She saw the light, she saw the shadow. She was afraid in the beginning, as you said, because
Yeah.
our own shadow connects to other shadows. Oh, that person is awful, that person is this and that, and I'm saying that I am only light. So I can connect, I can project onto others the shadow aspects, or I can say, well, that person is showing her or his shadow aspects, but she also has, or he also has, they have light. Um, and maybe I can connect to their light. So I think
Yeah.
this, spiritually speaking, is the process that the teacher said. She said, all of us, and she understood that all, even the pearls, as you said, of
Yeah.
course, she was kind of, I am this person and I'm this and that. But of course, I think she learned that she didn't have to, to have that persona that so respected, because persona is part of the ego, and it's only a part, and it's not everything that we are, and even it's not many times our true self, right? So I just wanted to finish that, saying that we need to teach and to educate ourselves,
Yeah.
to educate our children to this responsibility and to this understanding, to be empathic and compassionate to other people's difficulties, let's say
Mm-hmm.
shadows, to
Mm-hmm.
understand that we all have some, and we
Mm-hmm.
are here to learn with each other, to bring more light to the world, not more shadow, please. Right? We have had enough shadow. So let's work with our shadows and find balance, because it's all about balance. And also, I wanted to say very quickly that Joanna calls us to consider, to end this episode, that many of our sufferings come from the conditionings that we all have,
Yeah.
and to improper education, she says, when
Yeah.
she is analyzing suffering. So
Yeah.
we have a responsibility, Marcia and everybody else, to teach better ourselves, to educate ourselves better, and to educate our children in all of this that we have been talking today.
Ah, love it. Love it. Love it. I think uh, so many nuggets of wisdom in today's conversation. So thank you, Anahy. I just think that all of that we're talking about, and we are misguided, right? We think that courage is born out of, and we put like a cartoon, like an image of whatever, but it's not born in battlefields. It is really born in our hearts, and it is born when we decide to keep on loving, keep on believing, keep on walking, right? And the path is steep, but we're gonna keep on going. So we close today by just asking ourselves, what is what is the call to courage that life is presenting to me right now, right? It's different for each one of us, but let's just for a moment reflect, what is it? And how can I respond to it with love and with faith, just like this young teacher? But uh, we cannot leave without saying that Joanna reminds us that courage dignifies the soul, and with love as our guide, we can really transform every challenge that we face into a step toward not the shadow, to the light. So thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Anahy. What a lovely time we spent together. For those of you who are perhaps listening to this podcast for the first time, please note that the Psychology and Spirituality weekly talks are based, as we peppered with her name, with the works by Joanna de Ângelis. And I do hope that this was insightful for you as it was insightful for me. I want to also thank our sponsors, Mansão do Caminho, the United States Spiritist Federation, the International Spiritist Council, and AMI Brazil. And that organization is the Brazilian arm of the Medical Spiritist Association. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate and hope to see you next time. Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you.